Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, there is something I want to tell you today that could change the course of your life. Not in a year, not in a month, but in just 7 days. And all it takes is 1 minute a day, just 60 seconds. 1 minute to silence the noise. 1 minute to push back the darkness. 1 minute to open the door to the greatest power in the universe. I'm talking about a minute of genuine, honest prayer. Not a rehearsed speech, not a list of demands, not just empty words, but a quiet, sincere conversation with the one who made you. A minute to say, God, I need you. A minute to say, I'm listening. A minute to ask, what do you want for my life? You see, when you pray, even for a single minute, you're not just speaking into the air, you are connecting with the God who hears. We live in a world full of anxiety, confusion, and brokenness. People search for peace in a pill, love in a screen, purpose in a paycheck. But none of it fills the hole in the heart. None of it satisfies the soul. But 1 minute with God, that can start a fire, because prayer is not just words, it's power. It's access to the one who holds the stars in place, who calls you by name, who gave his son so you could live. So here's my challenge to you. For the next 7 days, take 1 minute each day. Shut the door, put down the phone, get alone with God, pour out your heart, thank him, ask him, listen. And I promise you this, if you do it with an open heart, if you come with faith even the size of a mustard seed, you will not be the same. Peace will come, clarity will come, direction will come. And even if your circumstances don't change overnight, you will change. Because when we seek God, he shows up every time. So start today. 1 minute, 7 days, a life transformed, amen. Take 1 minute, that's it, just 60 seconds. In a world where we spend hours scrolling, minutes complaining, and days chasing things that never satisfy, this may sound too small to matter, but that's the beauty of it. 1 minute isn't a burden, it's a doorway, a simple invitation to shift your focus, clear the clutter in your mind, and open your heart to something far greater than yourself. We often wait for big moments to change our lives. A new year, a fresh start, some miracle. But what if the miracle was in the moment you're in right now? What if 1 minute a day could be the spark that lights a fire inside of you? It's not about a perfect setting or fancy words. It's not about doing everything right. It's about showing up. Just you and God. When you set aside 1 minute, you're not adding a task to your to-do list. You're making space for peace to enter, space for your soul to breathe, space for God to speak, because he does speak. Not always in booming voices or flashes of lightning, but in stillness, in whispers, in the quiet moments most of us are too busy to notice. Think about how you start your day. Is it with stress? Is it with screens? Is it with noise? Imagine instead pausing before the chaos starts. 1 minute where you say, God, I'm here. I don't have the answers, but I know you do. That minute might be the only moment of stillness you get all day, but it might also be the moment that gives you strength for everything that comes after. We underestimate the power of small things. A seed, after all, is tiny, but give it time and it becomes a tree. That 1 minute of prayer, that moment of turning your heart to God can take root. It can grow. Over 7 days, it can start reshaping how you think, how you see, how you live. You may begin to notice your thoughts becoming clearer, your heart softening, your hope returning. You may find yourself more grounded, more patient, more at peace. And it's not because of the minute, it's because of who you meet in that minute. That's the secret. This isn't about routine, it's about relationship. You're not performing for God, you're coming to him as you are. No filters, no masks, just honest, raw, real you. And that's exactly who he wants. This challenge isn't about being religious, it's about being real. It's about realizing that no matter how busy or broken you feel, you're never too far gone, and it's never too late to start. Even if your faith feels small, even if you don't know what to say, that minute is more than enough for God to begin a new work in your life. So when you feel overwhelmed, stop. When you feel empty, stop. When you don't even know what you're feeling, stop. Just 1 minute, breathe, open your heart, say His name, say anything, or say nothing and just be still. The power is not in your words, it's in His presence. This is the challenge. Not to do more, not to be better, just to pause and invite God in for 1 minute every day for 7 days. That's all it takes to start something real. Prayer is not a ritual. It's not a string of memorized phrases or a tradition we go through because someone told us we should. Prayer is power, pure, raw, life-changing power. And yet so many people treat it like a last resort, something they turn to only when all else fails. But what if we started seeing it for what it really is? Not a backup plan, but the first and strongest weapon we have. When you pray, you aren't just speaking into the air. You're speaking to the Creator of the universe, the one who formed the stars, the mountains, the oceans, and you. You're not talking to a distant being who's too busy to care. You're talking to a Father who sees every detail of your life, who knows your thoughts before you even think them, and who loves you more than you could ever understand. Think about that. Really let it sink in. The same God who split the Red Sea, who shut the mouths of lions, who raised the dead, He's listening, He's attentive, He's near. And when you open your mouth, when your heart cries out, He doesn't turn away, He leans in. That's why prayer is so powerful. Because it's not about how strong or spiritual you are. It's about how strong He is. It's about connection, access, alignment. When you pray, you are stepping into the presence of the Almighty. You are inviting Him to move, not just in the world around you, but in the deepest places of your heart. Prayer changes things. It changes the atmosphere. It changes the direction of your day. It changes you. Worry turns to peace. Confusion turns to clarity. Fear turns to faith. Prayer takes your eyes off the chaos and puts them on the one who is still in control. It reminds you that you are not alone, not forgotten, not powerless. But here's the key. Prayer isn't just about asking for things. It's not a shopping list you hand to God. It's a relationship. It's a conversation. It's saying, God, I want to know you. I want to hear your voice. I want your will more than I want my way. That's where the real power is. When we stop using prayer to bend God to our plans and instead surrender to His, even 1 minute of real prayer can shift everything. Not because of the length, but because of the posture. When your heart is open, when your spirit is humble, when your faith, even if it's just a flicker, reaches out to Him, He responds. Mountains may not move immediately. Doors might not fly open overnight, but something happens in the unseen. Heaven leans close. And the God of all creation starts working in ways you can't yet see. Sometimes the greatest miracles begin in the quietest moments. Sometimes the most powerful breakthroughs come not with a shout, but with a whisper, a tear, a wordless sigh. Prayer doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be real, authentic, honest. That's what God honors. Not performance, not eloquence, just you coming to Him. And here's the beautiful truth. Prayer doesn't require a special place or a special time. It can happen in your car, in your kitchen, in the middle of your worst day. Because the power is not in the setting, it's in the surrender. So pray. Even if you don't feel like it, even if you don't know what to say, even if all you can do is cry, pray. Because when you do, you're tapping into the greatest source of strength, peace, and hope the world has ever known. And that kind of power, it will change everything. God listens. Those two words carry more power than we often realize. In a world where people talk over each other, where voices get drowned out by noise, where it feels like no one is really paying attention, there is a God who hears every word, every cry, every whisper from your heart. And not only does He hear you, but He listens. With intent, with care, with a love deeper than anything this world could offer. You are never just speaking into empty space. When you pray, your words don't vanish into the sky. They rise to the throne of heaven where God himself bends down to hear you. The Bible says he is close to the brokenhearted and that his ears are open to the righteous. That means your voice matters to him. Your pain matters. Your questions, your doubts, your gratitude, your worship, they all matter. So many people carry around this quiet fear that they're not good enough for God to listen, that their mistakes, their past, or even their current struggles somehow disqualify them. But that's not the truth. God doesn't wait for you to have it all together before he tunes in. He listens in the mess. He listens in the middle of your fear and your failure. He listens when you feel unworthy, because his love isn't based on your perfection. It's based on his character. And he is love. God listens not because of who we are, but because of who he is. And when he listens, he doesn't just hear your words. He hears your heart. He hears the things you can't even articulate, the pain you don't know how to describe, the hope you're afraid to speak out loud, the weariness you try to hide. He sees it all, and still he draws near. There are moments when you pray and it feels like nothing is happening. Silence, stillness. You wonder if your words are bouncing off the ceiling. But don't mistake God's silence for absence. Just because you don't feel anything doesn't mean nothing's happening. God hears. He responds in his timing, in his way, and always for your good. Sometimes the answer is immediate. Sometimes it's a process. Sometimes he says yes, sometimes not yet. And sometimes I have something better. But never once does he ignore you. Never once does your voice go unheard. And the incredible thing, God doesn't just listen to the prayers of the powerful, the holy, or the ones with the right words. He listens to the addict crying out for help. He listens to the single mom whispering a desperate prayer while folding laundry. He listens to the man battling depression who doesn't even have the words, just tears. He listens to the teenager in a crowded room who feels invisible. He listens to the prisoner, the pastor, the skeptic, the seeker. He listens to you. You don't have to scream to get his attention. You don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to speak perfectly. You just have to come. One word from a sincere heart reaches the heart of God more powerfully than 1,000 eloquent speeches. And here's the beautiful truth. God doesn't just listen, maybe not always in the way we expect, but always in the way we need. He sends peace when you're anxious. He gives strength when you're weary. He offers clarity when you're confused. And more than anything, he gives himself. When you pray, you're not trying to convince a distant deity to care. You're talking to a Father who already does. A Father who listens every single time. So don't stop speaking. Don't stop crying out. Don't stop showing up in the quiet even when it's hard, because your voice has value in heaven, and the God who listens is already at work. The world is full of promises. Promises of happiness, fulfillment, peace, purpose. It tells you that if you just get the right job, the right relationship, the right body, the right status, then you'll be complete. Advertisements shout it. Social media paints it. Culture feeds it. Everywhere you turn, the message is the same. This next thing will satisfy you. So we chase it. We chase money hoping it will bring security. We chase success hoping it will bring value. We chase relationships hoping they will fill the emptiness inside. We chase experiences, substances, distractions, hoping something, anything will make us feel whole. But no matter how much we gain, no matter how far we run, the ache remains. Because the truth is simple and sobering. The world can't satisfy what only God was meant to fill. It's like trying to quench a deep thirst with salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. At first it feels good, exciting, even addictive. But after a while, the sparkle fades. The thrill wears off. The money doesn't fulfill. The applause grows quiet. The relationship can't carry the weight of your soul. And the things you once hoped would heal you end up leaving you even more broken than before. You were never meant to be satisfied by temporary things. Your heart was made for something eternal. That's why no matter how much you achieve, it's never enough. That's why even in a crowd of people, you can feel completely alone. That's why the joy you find in the world fades so quickly. It was never meant to last. There's a hunger inside every person that can't be filled with anything this world offers. It's a spiritual hunger, a longing to be known, to be loved without condition, to have peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. That kind of fulfillment doesn't come from things. It comes from a person. It comes from the one who made you, who knows you fully, and who still calls you his own. God never promised that life with him would be easy, but he did promise it would be full of peace that passes understanding, full of joy that doesn't rely on emotions, full of purpose that doesn't fade with time, full of a love so deep, so relentless, that it anchors your soul no matter what the world throws at you. And when you find that, when you really begin to walk with God, you realize just how empty the world really is. Not because its pleasures are inherently evil, but because they're too small to hold your heart. When you've tasted the presence of God, nothing else compares. The entertainment, the fame, the fleeting highs, they all start to lose their grip. Not because you're trying to be religious, but because you've encountered something real, something lasting, something that finally satisfies. It doesn't mean you'll never struggle again. It doesn't mean you won't be tempted to run back to old habits. But it does mean you now know where the real well is. You know where the living water flows. And once you've had a drink from that well, nothing else will ever do. The world will keep shouting, it will keep offering distractions, but you don't have to chase it anymore. You don't have to live on empty promises. You were made for more than that. You were made for God. And until he becomes your source, everything else will leave you wanting, because the world can entertain you, it can distract you, and it can even temporarily excite you. But it will never satisfy your soul. Only he can do that. And he's not far off. He's closer than you think, waiting for you to turn your heart toward him so he can fill you with the only thing that truly lasts. Prayer brings change, not just around you, but within you. It is one of the most powerful things a human being can do, not because the words themselves are magical, but because of the one who hears them. When you begin to pray consistently, sincerely, something begins to shift. Not always immediately, not always visibly, but something deep inside starts to move. We often come to prayer expecting external results. We want circumstances to turn around. We want healing, provision, breakthroughs, answers. And God in his mercy often gives those things, but more often than not, the greatest miracle isn't what changes around you. It's what changes in you. Because prayer has a way of realigning your heart. It pulls your attention away from fear and toward faith. It turns your gaze from the problem to the provider. It gently softens the places inside you that have grown hard from pain, disappointment, or pride. You start to see people differently. You start to see yourself differently. You begin to feel the weight of your burdens lighten. Not always because they've disappeared, but because now you're not carrying them alone. Prayer isn't about convincing God to do what you want. It's about surrendering to what he knows is best. That's where the transformation happens. You begin to stop striving and start trusting. You stop controlling and start releasing. That shift doesn't always happen in one moment. It's often gradual, day by day, prayer by prayer. Your soul grows stronger. Your vision becomes clearer. Your peace deepens. It's easy to measure progress by what we can see. But real change, lasting change, starts in the unseen places, in your thoughts, in your desires, in your responses to stress, anger, temptation. Prayer works from the inside out. It changes the tone of your thoughts, the posture of your heart, and the words that come out of your mouth. Over time, things that used to shake you begin to lose their power. You gain perspective. You walk differently. You respond with more grace, more patience, more love. That's the beauty of spending time with God. The more you're with him, the more you become like him. Just like being around someone long enough rubs off on you. Being in God's presence begins to leave a mark on your spirit. You find yourself less anxious, not because your life is easier, but because your trust runs deeper. You face challenges not without fear, but with faith that you're not facing them alone. And sometimes the changes in your circumstances do come Mountains move, doors open, chains break. That happens too. But even if the outer world stays the same, you are not the same. And that's the kind of change the world can't take away. It's a shift in identity, in confidence, in peace. You start to live from a place of being anchored, not tossed around by every storm. People may not see it at first, but they'll notice something different. The way you carry yourself, the way you love people, the way you speak hope into heavy situations. They'll ask, what changed? And the answer will be simple. You've been spending time with God. Prayer is not a one-time fix. It's a daily surrender. It's a conversation that deepens over time. And with every moment spent in His presence, you are being shaped, strengthened, and transformed. Change doesn't always come in the way we expect, but it always comes when we bring our hearts to the one who holds the power to make all things new. Prayer opens the door to that process, and once it starts, you'll never want to go back. God isn't looking for perfection. He's looking for faith. That truth alone can lift a weight off your shoulders. Because somewhere along the way, many of us started believing that we have to have it all together before we can come to God. That we have to clean ourselves up, fix our flaws, say all the right words, and live without stumbling in order to be worthy of His presence. But the gospel is not about human perfection. It's about divine grace, meeting imperfect people right where they are. God never asked for perfect people. He asked for real ones, honest ones, willing ones. People who are broken, struggling, uncertain, yet still willing to trust Him, still willing to believe, even if it's just a little. That's what faith is. It's not having all the answers. It's not standing tall and confident all the time. Sometimes faith looks like falling to your knees, whispering, God, I believe, help my unbelief. And He honors that. Jesus never turned away those who came to Him in weakness. He never demanded perfection from the woman caught in adultery, from the thief on the cross, or from the doubting disciple. What He responded to was faith, even if it was fragile, even if it was small, even if it was messy. He met people in their honesty, not their holiness. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that God loves some future version of us more than the current one, that He's waiting for us to improve before He really blesses us. But that's not who He is. God doesn't deal in performance-based love. His love is constant. His grace is immediate. And His power is made perfect, not in your strength, but in your weakness. You don't have to pray with eloquent words. You don't need to quote every verse or understand every doctrine. You don't have to feel strong every day. What matters is that you come, that you trust Him enough to show up, that you believe even if it's barely enough to whisper a prayer. That's faith. And faith, even as small as a mustard seed, can move mountains. Some of the most powerful prayers you'll ever pray won't be the longest ones. They'll be the most honest. Lord, I need you. God, I'm tired. Jesus, help me. Those simple, raw expressions of faith echo louder in heaven than any polished prayer ever could. Because God isn't listening for perfection. He's listening for your heart. When you approach God with faith, you're saying, I can't do this on my own. That's not weakness. That's the beginning of transformation. That's where grace pours in. That's where healing begins. God can do more with your surrendered heart than with your best performance. He's not impressed by how put together you look. He's moved by your willingness to trust Him in the middle of your mess. We don't grow closer to God by pretending we're okay. We grow closer by bringing Him our not okay. That's where intimacy happens. That's where faith becomes real. Because it's not in the flawless moments that we learn to depend on God. It's in the broken ones, the painful ones, the quiet ones where we wonder if He's still listening, and yet we choose to believe He is. You're not disqualified because you're not perfect. In fact, you're the very person God delights in meeting with. He's not waiting for you to become stronger. He's inviting you to rely on His strength. He's not asking you to impress Him. He's calling you to trust Him. So come as you are. Bring your doubts, your fears, your questions, your guilt. Let faith, not perfection, lead you to His feet. That's where real change begins. There's something sacred about setting aside intentional time alone with God. In a world that constantly demands our attention, that fills every silence with noise, that prizes busyness like a badge of honor, choosing to stop, to quiet yourself, and to be with God isn't just rare, it's powerful, and it's necessary. We often treat time with God as something that fits into the leftover spaces of our lives. A quick prayer before we fall asleep, a passing thought during the day, a verse skimmed over while scrolling. But there's a difference between including God in your routine and truly meeting with Him. When you carve out intentional time on purpose, without distractions, you're saying with your actions, God, you matter more than anything else right now. That kind of time doesn't have to be long or perfect. It doesn't require a candlelit room or a mountain retreat. It just requires you, your presence, your honesty, your willingness to stop everything else and focus on Him. It could be early in the morning before the world wakes up. It could be in your car on your lunch break. It could be late at night when the house is finally quiet. The place and the time don't matter as much as the heart behind it. When you make that space, something begins to shift. Not because God suddenly shows up, He's always near, but because your awareness of Him deepens. You begin to hear what you couldn't hear before. You sense what you were too distracted to notice. His peace washes over you. His voice becomes clearer. His presence grows familiar. Spending intentional time alone with God is not about checking a box or following a religious routine. It's about relationship. It's about choosing intimacy with the one who already knows every detail of your life but still longs to be invited in. When you sit quietly with Him, when you speak openly, when you listen expectantly, you're building something eternal. You're investing in the most important relationship you'll ever have. It's in those private moments that your roots grow deep. It's where your faith is refined. It's where healing begins, not just on the surface, but in the places no one else sees. The more time you spend with Him, the more your perspective changes. What once seemed overwhelming starts to shrink in the light of His presence. What once felt heavy is lifted by His strength. What once felt confusing becomes clear when filtered through His Word and His wisdom. Jesus Himself made time to be alone with the Father. Even in the middle of His ministry, with crowds pressing in and people constantly needing Him, He slipped away to quiet places to pray. If the Son of God needed time alone with God, how much more do we? This time isn't always about asking for things. Sometimes it's just sitting in silence. Sometimes it's pouring out your heart. Sometimes it's worship. Sometimes it's weeping. Sometimes it's simply being still. And in those moments, you start to discover that God is not only enough, He's everything. You don't have to come with fancy words. You don't need to feel spiritual or strong. Just come as you are. Come tired. Come broken. Come joyful. Come seeking. Come with a heart that says, God, I want more of you. That's where transformation happens. Not in the rush, but in the quiet. Not in the crowd, but in the stillness. Life pulls us in 1,000 directions, but the secret to lasting peace, unshakable joy, and a steady soul is found in those intentional moments alone with God. When you make space for Him, He fills it every time with more than you could have imagined. There is a promise, a divine guarantee that is woven throughout Scripture, and it's a promise that transcends every circumstance, every struggle, and every fear. It's the promise of transformation. When we come to God, when we open our hearts to His love and His power, He promises not just to change our circumstances, but to change us from the inside out. This promise isn't about a quick fix. It's not about suddenly having everything work out perfectly or magically. The transformation God offers isn't about improving our lives on the surface. It's about an inner revolution that touches every part of who we are, our thoughts, our desires, our emotions, our actions. It's the kind of change that isn't visible to the world at first, but is deeply, fundamentally real. It's a change of heart, of mind, and of soul. It's the power of God at work, molding us into something more than we could ever be on our own. When we accept Christ, we are given a new identity. We are no longer defined by our past, by our failures, by the labels others have placed on us, or even by our own mistakes. We are called sons and daughters of the Most High, forgiven, redeemed, and made new. The old has gone, the new has come. This is the first step in transformation, a recognition that we are no longer bound by who we once were, but are free to step into who God is calling us to be. But transformation doesn't stop there. It's not just a one-time event. It's a continual process. As we walk with God, as we spend time in His Word and in prayer, He begins to shape our hearts. He removes the things that hinder us, the fears, the doubts, the anger, the bitterness, and replaces them with love, peace, patience, and joy. He refines us, just as gold is refined by fire. This doesn't always happen easily or quickly. It's often uncomfortable. It can be painful as we let go of old ways of thinking and living. But the beauty of this transformation is that it's always for our good, always for our growth, always to make us more like Christ. This promise of transformation is not about being perfect. It's about becoming more fully alive in the way God intended. It's about embracing who we are in Christ and allowing His Spirit to work through us. As we surrender, we find that the person we were always meant to be begins to emerge. The chains of fear, guilt, and shame begin to break. Old habits lose their grip. Our hearts become more compassionate, more loving, more forgiving. God's promise of transformation is also a promise of peace. As He works in us, He teaches us how to live with an unshakable peace. Even in the midst of life's storm, we are no longer slaves to anxiety or worry because we learn to trust in God's sovereignty. We begin to understand that while our circumstances may be unpredictable, God is always faithful. His love never changes, His power never weakens, and His purpose for us is always good. That trust brings peace, and that peace transforms the way we live and respond to the world around us. The promise of transformation also brings a new perspective on the world. As God shapes our hearts, we begin to see people differently. We start to see them through His eyes, not as annoyances or obstacles, but as individuals loved deeply by God. We learn to love as He loves, to forgive as He forgives, and to serve as He serves. Our lives take on greater purpose because we begin to realize that God is at work in every moment, in every relationship, and in every situation. Transformation is a journey, not a destination. It's a process that continues as long as we walk with God. But the promise is sure. He is at work changing us, making us more like Him, and shaping us into the person we were always meant to be. This transformation doesn't come from our own effort, but from His grace, His power, and His love. And that is a promise that will never fail.